2,500 years ago. When the Lord Buddha was living in the divine world called Thusatha as the divine king called Santhusatha, at the invitation of the deity Sakra, he looked at the world with great kindness and decided to come to the human world with the aim of freeing them from suffering. For that, the time, country, region, caste, mother decided by himself. After that, according to that decision, the divine king decided to be born from the womb of Queen Mahamaya, the queen of King Suddhodana, who was the king of the Brahmana caste in Kapilavastu region of India at that time. He came out of heaven for that. That night Queen Mahamaya saw a white baby elephant in her dream and saw that white baby elephant take a white lotus flower and walk 3 times around her bed and enter her womb. The next morning King Suddhodana called the sages and asked about this dream, and they said that it was a very auspicious dream and that it marked the birth of a noble prince. Time has passed and 10 months have passed. The day has come. It was Vesak full moon Poya day, and when the sweet sound of birds was blowing, the environment started to feel a mildness that was not there before. Queen Mahamaya told King Suddhodana that she wanted to go to her mother's house to give birth to her sons. Queen Mahamaya started the journey the next morning with her companions. After traveling a short distance, they came across a beautiful garden of beautiful flowers. Queen Mahamaya said that she wanted to stop for a while in that flower garden. Then the princess entered the flower garden and was enjoying its beauty. During that time, she started feeling uncomfortable. She felt that it was the need to have the child. She told her maids that. The maids surrounded her. Like a blessing of nature, a branch of a tree came down for her to catch. After some time, that wonderful event happened. That wonderful birth of the prince took place. The noble prince was born to relieve all beings from suffering and out of compassion for all beings. Another wonderful incident happened after the birth. The prince walked on 7 lotus flowers right after his birth. The prince spoke from the 7th lotus flower. Standing on the lotus flower, the prince raised one finger and said that I am mature, great, noble to the world, and these souls will not be reborn afterwards. King Suddhodana held a naming ceremony for the prince born in this way. At that time, the name Siddhartha was given with the idea that meaning would be given to the world. But the sages who came to the ceremony said something that moved the king's heart. That is, if the prince lives in the palace, he will become a king of kings, and if he becomes a monk, he will attain great enlightenment. King Suddhodana, who wanted to see the prince become a king of kings, built 3 royal palaces filled with all comforts for the princes so that he would not think that he would become a monk. Also removed from the city everything that could be disillusioned with the world. The elderly, the sick, and the monks were also removed from the city. Time passed slowly. Amidst all the comforts, the prince came to youth. King Suddhodana thought that the prince had reached a suitable age for marriage. Many princesses came forward for that, but the prince chose a princess named Yashodhara, who had helped him to achieve his enlightenment with him since the previous times. As per the habit of the world, they got married. After a few months of marriage, a son named Rahula was born to Prince Siddhartha and Devi Yashodhara. Prince Siddhartha was spending his time very happily with his son Prince and his wife, and one day Prince Siddhartha wanted to see the wonders of his country. The prince called the minister named Channa and ordered the horse named Kanthaka to be prepared for the purpose. The prince started his journey the next morning and traveled very happily, seeing the splendor of the cities with his palaces. The prince who was walking like this decided to go out of the city. As the minister was obliged to obey the prince's orders, he had to take the chariot out of the city. During that journey, the surprised prince's heart began to tremble. The prince got to see old people, sick people, dead bodies, etc. The prince inquired about all this from Minister Channa. Then he decided to go further. Here, the prince asked Minister Channa, who was going on that saintly journey wearing a simple yellow robes with a serene look. At that time, Minister Channa said that a monk who is trying to understand the truth by giving up everything goes on that peaceful journey. Then the sad and emotional prince returned to the palace. Spent many days thinking. Meanwhile, one night the royal prince fell asleep while watching the dances and songs of the actresses. The prince woke up in the middle of the night. The heart that was disappointed became more disappointed. The reason for that is seeing the actresses who were dancing and singing very beautifully before falling asleep, falling in various places and sleeping with saliva running from both sides of their mouths. The prince thought further, and the prince realized that everyone ages, gets old, sick, tired, sad, and dies. The prince thought that he should find a way to save all the creatures from this suffering. The prince decided to leave the lay house. When the prince made this decision, one obstacle blocked the prince's mind. That is his son Prince Rahula and his wife Yashodhara. But Prince Siddhartha made a strong decision to leave the lay house, saying that he would take this decision for the sake of all the creatures of the world. Then Channa spoke to the minister and left the palace at night with the horse. The prince came to Naranjana river, and there he shaved his head and gave all the ornaments to the minister Channa and ordered him to go back to the palace and tell his parents about this. Kanthaka, the horse, who was watching all these things, could not bear this. Kanthaka, the horse, which was born on the same day and at the same time, died on the spot with a ruptured chest. Bearing all these things in his heart, the prince wore yellow robes and became a monk. From that moment Prince Siddhartha became Siddhartha Thera. Siddhartha Thera, who shaved his head and attained monasticism by the Naranjana river, tried various methods to understand the truth. He tried by giving his body a lot of pain. He tried by giving his body a lot of pleasure. None of that worked. Later he tried to understand the truth by approaching various teachers. But Siddhartha realized that none of those teachers had the Dharma he was looking for, and realized that this Dharma can only be understood by attaining the great enlightenment. Siddhartha Thero then sat under the Asatu Bo tree and thought thus: I will not rise from this place unless I attain the great enlightenment. Seeing this, the Mara along with his Dasamara army attacked Siddhartha, but despite all the obstacles, on that day Vesak full moon Poya, he attained great enlightenment. Later, out of compassion for the world, he taught the world the way to free all animals from this worldly suffering and lived for 80 years and attained parinirvana, shaking the whole world on the great day of Vesak. In other words, the Lord Buddha left this world after telling all beings the way to get rid of suffering. From now on, we hope to bring the character of Lord Buddha, the examples that can be taken in our lives from that Buddha character, and how those examples motivate our lives to do good deeds. Namo Buddha.